Hi class, in this video we're going to go over 2.2 music theory, rhythm. So in the last video we went over pitch and how the pitches sit on the staff. This one we're going to talk about rhythm. So we're going to specifically talk about note duration and time signatures and how to identify time signatures. So tempo, this is the Italian word that means how fast or slow. And this is a group of terms. And we have all the way down to grave, which is very slow, to prestissimo, which is as fast as possible. And there's more terms that fit in between, and each of these corresponds to a specific BPM or beats per minute, or a BPM range more accurately. And this tells us how fast to perform these rhythms. But we need to know the duration or the how long before we can play the music. So every single piece of music has a steady beat or a pulse that matches the BPM or the tempo marking. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the background pulse of every single music. Now some is in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just depends on the piece. But remember, everything's a pattern. So we have an organization of notes. Our biggest note, the whole note, the one that looks like a big old Cheerio, is a whole measure. A measure typically is 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So a whole note takes 4 beats. Now, not every measure is 4 beats, but typically, so this pattern falls typically. Half note is half of that whole note, half of that measure. So it's 2 beats. So a whole measure would be 1, 1. So it takes up 2. So notice how I gave it 2 pulses. Quarter note is 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Each pulse gets a beat. Then we get eighth notes, which is only half of a beat. So very fast. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I can get 4 of them. I can get 8 of them in a measure because it's only half a beat. 16th note is 4 in 1 beat. So in one snap, 1 pulse, you're going to do 4 of them. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Now you can combine these to create music and to make it interesting. Remember, the big one that looks like a Cheerio lasts for 4 beats. So it'd be 1. The half note only gets 2. So 1, 2, and so on and so forth. We also get what's called flags and connecting notes. So right after this lovely 8th note is this little flag, little sticking off the top. And that's what tells us it is an 8th note. But those flags can stick together. If you've got 2 8th notes next to each other in music, instead of having flags, they have a bar connecting them, a nice beam, and they're like supporting each other because they're a little unstable by themselves. Same thing for 16th notes. 16th notes have 2 little flags hanging off. And so when there's more than one of them next to each other, they like to be supported. So they'll hang on to each other and put a little beam out and be like, hey, let's hang out together. So rest. For every note, for every rhythm, there is a rest. Every single one has a matching rest. So a whole rest is this one right here that looks like a hat. And think of the way to remember this for a whole and a half rest, because they look really similar. The whole rest sits below a line on the staff, and the half rest sits above the line on the staff. So think about like old-timey gentlemen wearing hats and tipping their hats all the time. And a whole gentleman at the time would tip their hat, and a half of a man would not. So think of it that way. Old-timey gentlemen. We do not do this anymore. But if somebody were to tip their hat, whole, the hat looks tipped. If it looks like it's still on the head, half. Quarter rest, it looks like a lovely little squiggly line. 8th rest, notice it has a flag, but it's just like a little dot on the end of the flag and the line. 16th rest has 2 of those little flag dots. And so here's our lovely chart. Whole note and whole rest get 4 beats. So it could be 4 beats of silence or 4 beats of music. Half rest, 2 beats. Quarter note and quarter rest, 1 beat. Eighth note, eighth rest, half a beat. 16th note and 16th rest, quarter of a beat. And it just keeps going down, lovely little fractions, dividing right in half. But we also get more. We get dots and ties. Dots and ties extend the length of the note beyond what was there before. So a tie is like having an addition sign. You're tying together 2 notes, typically over a bar line. So bar line, 2 different measures, and they're separated. But it's just showing, I need you to add this to this. These are together. Just add them together. Play them together. A dot is like extending it. So it's like an extension. So if you've got a whole note and then you put a dot at the end, you're going to add half of the original value to it. So a whole note is worth 4. And so half of 4 is 2. So the dot is worth 2. Does that make sense? So a dot is worth half of the original. So half note is worth 2. And we have a dot. So half of 2 is 1. So now we add them together and we get 3. Quarter note is worth 1. Half of 1 is half. So we get 1.5. And so on and so forth. So the dot is half of the original. So you take the original plus half. Here are the different parts of music, some more parts of music. So this is our staff. We talked about that before. And it's broken up into measures, units of measures. We have bar lines that connect the measures and separate them. And at the beginning of every piece of music, you will see the clef to tell you what pitch to be in. And you'll also see a time signature. And so the time signature tells us how many beats in a measure and what kind of note gets the beat. So the top tells us how many beats in a measure. So this one has a 4 on the top. So there will be 4 beats in a measure. And the bottom 4 tells me what kind of note gets the beat. So 4 means quarter, quarter 4. So 4 quarter notes in a measure. And this is what we call common time. This is the most common time signature that you will see. But you can also see a 3/4. So 3 quarter notes gets 3 notes in a measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also see 2, 4. You can also see the reverse. You can see 4 on the top and 2 on the bottom, meaning 2 half note or half notes. There's 4 half notes. It's a lot of beats. It just depends on what the composer wants. But this 4/4 is our common time. So 4 quarter notes in a measure. More time signatures. We can do 2/4, 2/2, 2/8. It just depends on what's going on. So these are all simple time. We also get some different kinds of time, so we're going to stick with simple time for now. Top is how many beats, bottom is what kind of beats. So bottom number 4 means a quarter note, 2 means a half note, 8 means an eighth note. The top is how many, so this is 2/4, 2 quarter notes, 2 half notes, 2 eighth notes. So now let's put it all together. Now we are going to count the beats and put it in. I'm going to insert a text box. And what we can do is we're going to count the rhythms. So a half note gets 2 beats. So we're going to do 1, number 1, and I'm going to do a line to extend it to say it's going to keep going in time. So that was 2 beats. The next number in line is 3. That gets only 1 beat, that's quarter note. Next is 4. A whole note gets 4 beats, so I'm going to do 4, and a line to say it keeps going in time. Next, we have a half note, and it gets 2, so we're going to do the number 1, and a little line to say it's going to keep going in time. And that was 1, 2. Next number is 3. So 3, and it keeps going in time. And then our quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I were to count this in time, this is what it would sound like. 1, 3, 4. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then do that again. So when you have any note that lasts more than a singular beat, you're going to hold it out with your voice as well to portray that it's going further in time. So once again, 1, 3, 4. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's a little bit more practice. I'm going to do the first top line, the bottom bass cuff line. It's the same thing. It just looks a little bit different. So once again, I'm going to enter my text box. Our first note is a half note, which gets 2 beats. I'm going to do 1 in a line to say it gets 1 plus some. We have another half note. So we already had beats 1 and 2. The next number is 3. 3 in a line to say it keeps going. And we get a quarter note. 1, 2, 3. But now we have a rest. So whenever we have a rest and we're counting, we put it in parentheses to show that the beat happens. It happens in time, but we don't say anything. So it's like, I'm hiding. Oh, I'm not hiding. Don't look at me. But now we're getting some eighth notes. So the first one falls on beat 1. And the next eighth note gets a lovely plus sign. And we call him and. 1 and. 2 and. 3. We have another rest. So this 4 goes in parentheses. We have another eighth note pair. 1 and 2. Ooh. And then we end in a half note. 3. So here's what that would sound like. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2, 3. So listen to that again. Watch how I put those claps in for the extra beats in between. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2, 3. All right, guys, that was the last one. In the course, you will, if you go under course content and resources, there's an area that has music note practice. Please go into those and practice some of these on your own. They're not a grade. It's just good practice. Start practicing writing in your own rhythms and speaking them in rhythm. Have a great day, guys.
To get to the rhythmic and melodic studies for some extra practice, you're going to open up the course and click on Content. Under Content, you're going to look under Course Materials, and you're going to scroll to where you see Rhythmic and Melodic Studies. You can use these different rhythmic studies and melodic studies to practice writing in rhythms and pitches. If you click on it, you'll be able to see it in your screen, but you can also download this PDF and print it out as well if you prefer to write it in. So you'll see each line will have a different set of rhythms and you can practice writing it in. Now you can download it using this button right here. If you click it, you can download it and print it to work on your own. Have a great day.